Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's your boy Ben and JB from JBM Sports Media, and today we're going to be continuing our MLB season projection series. And now we're going to be heading towards H-Town as we talk about the Houston Astros. As always, we start talking about the lineup, then the starting pitching, and then the relief pitchers. And then afterwards, we conclude with our over-under win total. JB, you go at it first. What do you think about this 2026 Astros lineup?
Well, they definitely have some young talent that's emerging out of this lineup, and guys like Zach Cole, and Cam Smith, and obviously they have their mainstays with, Pena, Altuve, Alvarez, and obviously Carlos Correa. I like the veteran presence that Christian Walker could provide as well. He's really good defensively, and whatever you can get from his bat offensively is obviously a plus. He's got 25 plus home run power potential, and hopefully, if he gets that average up a little bit, he can provide some pop in that lineup. I don't think scoring runs is going to be the issue here for the Houston Astros. I think they're going to be able to put together a solid season offensively. Obviously, the bottom of that lineup with Zach Cole, Cam Smith, and Jake Myers, you're not too sure what you're going to be able to get out of that 7, 8, and 9 hole. But there is some talent. Like I said, Cam Smith, he could be a really good talent in this league for years to come, and Zach Cole could provide some pop too. Hopefully later in his career, and hopefully he can get off to a good start in 2026. I think that'll be a big boost for this lineup. But obviously, the key is the health of Yordan Alvarez, right? I mean, if Yordan Alvarez can't stay healthy, you lose 35 to 40 home runs, 100 plus RBIs, and a guy who hits for average too, a guy who can hit 270, 280, and be a real menace in the middle of that lineup. Especially for guys like Altuve and Pena who get on base consistently, and you want to have two guys on base for a guy like Alvarez that comes up in that third slot. So we'll see what happens if he can stay healthy. I think this lineup, could do some big things in 2026.
Yeah, I think one thing I'm looking at right here, and obviously is like the odd man out. Where's Isaac Paredes in this lineup? And I think
True.
that's probably going to be because Zach Cole's taking left field over Jordan. But even then, it's like, would you rather play Jordan at left and then have Paredes DH? I think I would rather prefer that. But are they too, I guess, prioritizing the risk of potentially Jordan getting hurt again? So that's why they want to have him as DH, which is super fair with the amount of time he's missed the past few years. So I think that's a super fair way to think about it as like the Astros side of it. But yes, I think offensively, it's not going to be an issue. Jeremy Pena, very solid all-star caliber year last year. Before he had the, I believe, rib cage issue. And then Altuve, still solid at his age. You know what you're going to get from him. I really do want to see a healthy year for Yordan Alvarez. He was my pick for AL Comeback Player of the Year, and hopefully he stays healthy and delivers that. Carlos Correa being back in the mix, right where he belongs with the Astros. I think, at this point in Carlos Correa's career, I think it's more important for him is just not being injured, just staying healthy and being on the field, because as long as he provides, availability, he's going to be just perfectly fine. I mean, you know what you're going to get out of Carlos Correa. Yanier Diaz, good offensively. I want to see more strides being taken by Yanier Diaz this year. Will it happen? I don't know. Christian Walker, though, he had a pretty downward year his first year with the Astros. I think that's obviously an obvious thing. That's why either him or Isaac Paredes was going to be most likely moved. And I don't think none of them are going to be moved at this point. Well, who knows, though? Maybe we get a last-minute buzzer-beater trade before the season starts. But it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out because Christian Walker had a pretty downward year. And Cam Smith, like you said, I think that is, when it comes to young talent, probably their most intriguing piece that they have, just because he did show great defense. He was probably one of the best defenders in the outfield in the AL this past year, and I think he could replicate that defensively. Offensively, can he take that step up? We're about to see. Jake Myers, you're going to know what you're going to get out of him. A utility bat at this point. I mean, very good defense, but offensively, not going to provide all of that. So, but like you said, I don't think offensively the issue is going to be scoring runs. I don't think that's the issue, and I think that's a perfect pivot to their starting rotation right here, led by their ace Hunter Brown, their newly acquired free agent pickup in Tatsui Imai, Christian Javier being back, Mike Burrows, who they got via trade via the Pirates, I do believe so, Lance McCullers Jr., obviously, and Spencer Arrighetti. He'll be back eventually. JB, what do you think about this rotation right here?
Well, obviously, getting Christian Javier back is going to be a tremendous boost to this rotation, and obviously Hunter Brown and Tatsuya Imai, in that 1 and 2 hole is to me is really nice. Obviously, we haven't seen anything from Imai yet, but he's got 98, 99 mile an hour stuff on his fastball. He's got a great sinker from what I'm hearing. So if he could hone that and make that something that he could put into his repertoire of pitches where he's got hard stuff, he'll fare really nice, especially at home. Where the Astros play, I think he'll do really nice there, and we'll just see how he acclimates on the road. But those first two guys, Hunter Brown and Imai, are very nice 1-2 tandem there. Getting Christian Javier back, he's got swing and miss stuff. Mike Burrows in the middle of this rotation, hopefully he could just give you some lockdown innings and have some gritty starts. Would not, I don't know what we're going to get from Lance McCullers Jr. It's going to be hit or miss with that as well. Way too many question marks for him, especially on the injury side of things. And Spencer Arrighetti, another guy that's got so much talent. He deserves to be in the rotation, but obviously the Astros have a lot of question marks when it comes to what do we do with Burrows? What do we do with a guy like McCullers? Do we keep them in the rotation? To me, I think you should kind of strengthen McCullers a little bit, maybe put him in the bullpen, pick some spots for him, get him feeling comfortable, and then bring him back into the rotation. But I think maybe the sixth man is something that they may be leaning towards. Maybe they feel like they need the rotation depth. It makes sense if they want to go that route. But how does that affect them moving forward? How does that affect a guy like Hunter Brown? I know a guy like Imai, this will probably benefit him the most out of everybody on this list due to the fact that Japan usually goes with a 6 or a 7-man rotation, and they're used to having a couple of extra days off in between starts. So this could help him. Like we said, the bottom of this rotation, way too many question marks, and what are they going to do moving forward? But they do have a lot of swing and miss stuff, so it's going to be interesting to see how they navigate this rotation. Especially for the start of the season and where they want the chips to fall for 2026.
I absolutely agree with you. I think when you look at Hunter Brown, and Imai has looked really good in spring training so far as well. I think those two I feel more confident with. Javier, I still need to see more coming back from TJ. I just got to see a little bit more. Is it going to be the same way that it was beforehand? Probably not. So I think between 3, 4, 5, and 6, there's a lot of question marks actually. And I think that kind of brings the thoughts in my head like, if these guys aren't hitting for the Astros, and more so if like these guys aren't pitching well for the Astros, then you got to think to yourself, I don't know what type of results you're going to be getting if your offense is putting in the work, but your pitching is not. At that point, you have to really think to yourself, something's going to have to give right there. Hunter Brown, though, I think he's an excellent pitcher. I think he obviously could give you basically being a top 5 pitcher in the AL at this point. He's lethal. Tetsuya Imai, I have seen clips of him in spring training. He has looked very solid. So if he could translate that to when it actually matters, that's going to be perfect to see for Astros fans. Like I said, I'm very interested. I think the big X factor in this rotation, obviously, is going to be Christian Javier. How is he going to look coming back from TJ? If he could look somewhat formidable, I think that'll be very good. But if he doesn't, and it's the opposite thing, I think they're in loads of trouble, especially because Mike Burrows, he does have a nasty pitch, but it's just like, can he get the whole repertoire going? I don't know. I really don't know. Lance McCullers, like you said, at some point you may be wanting to decide either bullpen or I don't know if they would consider DFAing him, but he has not looked good last year in the small sample size. I mean, this guy always gets hurt, bro. I'm sorry, but this guy's becoming a what if at this point. Spencer Arrighetti, I think there is still talent there with him, to be quite honest, but just the same thing there. Got to stay healthy. But regardless, I think this Astros rotation and the question marks it does have, it's perfectly fine to have because, yeah, there is question marks here. But regardless, let's get into the Astros bullpen, who obviously they're not going to have their closer on opening day. It's going to be Brian Abreu because Josh Hader's going on the IL with, I believe it's a biceps injury, I think I saw it was. And then they have Brian King, Anyel de Los Santos, Steven Okert, Bennett Sosa, Kai Wei Tang. I mean, just some names right here, JV. What do you think about this Astros bullpen?
I mean, listen, obviously Hader not being there for opening day is definitely something that is going to hurt this bullpen moving forward. But I have no problem with Brian Abreu in that closer role until Hader can figure it out. I think Anyel de Los Santos is a decent arm. Steven Okert is a decent arm. Bennett Sosa is somebody that's a lefty specialist. I think he could be really good. And I like the fact they have 3 lefties. I've been saying this the whole series. If you have 3 lefties, it's really good to mix and match, and it just keeps other offenses at bay a little bit, and kind of when you have that mix and match capability and that ability to do so I think it's really good. Hopefully they can produce for the bullpen, these 3 lefties, and take some pressure and maybe be a nice bridge. Like Brian King is going to have to be a solid bridge. De Los Santos is going to have to be a bridge to get to a guy like Abreu. So those late innings are going to be really important for this team, and I think the starting pitching is going to have to really, really step up and help this bullpen out, because I think once we see the Astros starters come out early, it's going to be tough for this Astros bullpen to have to recoup those innings multiple times. I think if you stretch them out over the course of a couple of months and they're pitching in the fifth and sixth way too much, that could affect them by July. They could be burnt out. So hopefully their starting rotation can give them some depth to the point where they're not, being used so early in games. I think that's going to be a huge key for the Astros bullpen in 2026 is not being overused by the All-Star break.
Yeah, I think usage rate is a perfect way to describe it, especially I don't think Hader's going to miss that much time from what I was hearing, which obviously is a great thing. But I think there's names here that are going to be very formidable, like Brian King. Obviously, Brian Abreu, have no doubt that he could be either a perfect setup guy in the eighth inning or actual closer for the time being. No problem with that guy. He's an absolute talented pitcher. Stephen Okert, not even a bad pitcher right there as well, pretty decent. But it's going to be at a point, like you said, JB, if this rotation isn't holding up and these guys start getting overworked, I think that's where you're going to throw up the red flag. And so, that's where I think the results from the bullpen are just not going to be. And that's going to be tough for the Astros. And it kind of was tough last year with the amount of injuries that they did have. But I think it will be good until it's not good. I think that's the best way to put it for this bullpen. It will be good until it's not good.
I agree.
And I think that's the best way to put it. And I think that's the perfect way to transition to our over-under win total for the Houston Astros in 2026. And it's brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel, please sponsor us. And we're just a few jobbers here wanting a FanDuel sponsor, so help us out here. But it's 85.5, JB. Over-under. What are you going?
All right, so I'm going to go over. I'm going to go 87 wins. I think the Astros are just one of those teams that they find a way to put it together every year. I know last year, they didn't make the postseason, but they did win 86 games in an injury-plagued season for 2025. I mean, they got hit every which way possible when it came to the injury bug, and they were able, they were fighting, up until the last week, up until the last week of the season. They were really fighting. They were fighting with Texas at points. They were fighting with Seattle at points. It was a real battle in that AL West, fighting with other teams for a wild card. Toronto, the Yankees, they were fighting everybody just to try to sneak in there. But yeah, I really do think that they win 87 games. I think they win a game and a half more than this projection. I think that they are capable of doing so. I think their pitching will find some type of success, and their offense will be, successful as well. I think they'll put a decent amount of runs on the board and help alleviate some of the pressure that this pitching staff may face. But, obviously it's definitely a hit or miss because if this rotation and bullpen can't perform due to injury or just a lack of ability, this win total may actually be, below 85.5. It could actually happen. But I think that there's just so pesky of a team, and they've been there and done that so many years, consecutively. Like I said, even missing the playoffs last year, they were just a thorn on a lot of people's sides. I do think that they are able to eclipse the 85.5 win total that FanDuel has for them, and I think they go 87. They'll have 87 wins for 2026.
Yeah, I'm going to hit the over as well. I have them being a playoff team in the AL and the wild card. I'm going to go 88 wins for them because I think that's what's going to do it. I had them barely sneaking in, and I think 88 wins is going to be reasonable for the Astros. If you remember last year, guys, they had a shit ton of injuries, a crap ton. I think they had the most in MLB last year, them and the Mets.
Yes.
And I think that's what's going to lead them to, if they stay healthy, it is an if, but if they do, this team is easily a playoff team, and they could still contend for the division. So that's where I think as long as the product on the field stays healthy and is hitting, it's pitching, and doing what it got to do, it's going to be good until it's not. And I think that's the philosophy for the Astros this year. That's why I do think they're going to win 88 games. I'm going to hit the over just like JB and have them being a playoff team because you know how pesky the Astros always are. They always stay in it, even with all the injuries, like JB said, to the end of the last week of the last year. That's when they finally got eliminated from playoff contention. Right. So I think I'm going to go with the over. JB's going to go with the over as well. What are you guys going over under with the Astros win total 85.5? Let us know in the comment section. As always, we appreciate all the support. Subscribe here to JBM Sports Media. Till next time, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.